So I am excited. I've got a special guest today. This is Seth, who worked on the train at Silver Dollar City, and we got lots of stories to share. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, you bet.
So if you don't know, this is Seth. I've known Seth for a long time.
It's like 2012, so 11 years.
So, yep. So, because when I first met you, how old were you at the time?
I would have been 15 or 14. I'm 25 now.
So Seth was one of our railfan train addicts, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
You were one of two guys, really, that we could count on to be out there all the time.
Yep.
Riding the train all day. Oh, yeah, the rest of the park's nice. I want the train.
Pretty much.
Memorize the spiel. Did we ever do the bit where we let you sit in the back and handed you the mic and let you spiel?
No, I never did that.
Okay, we did that with Coulter. Coulter was the other one. And Coulter actually also worked on the train for a while. If you go back to my one video, I don't know if you ever saw the snake story.
Yes. Yeah, okay. I did see that.
That was Coulter.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I learned Coulter's deathly afraid of snakes. That was quite amusing. But yeah, you two guys both started off young, out there all the time. Hey, this is what I want to do, and you both actually ended up doing it.
Yeah.
Which was really cool. So you started off, well, tell me about, the process of all that.
Okay, so started with my interest in trains when I was a kid. Don't really remember much of the start of it. I know that my grandpa was in the Navy, and he worked on steam boilers on ships there. And so he taught me a lot about it. And so I kind of got this interest of trains. And then, of course, living in the Springfield area, Silver Dollar City's pretty much the closest train. And the steam trains really, caught my eye. And so I kind of started really liking keeping up with it and kind of, oh my goodness, there's different engines, and they, as a kid, one of the things you notice is the whistle, and so I noticed, oh, they're different, and I could tell even from that age, I could go to the park, hear the whistle, and like, oh, 43's running today, and come down, sure enough.
See, you guys are so, I could tell there were different whistles, but I was not good enough to ever tell the difference. I could tell you if one was louder than the other or a little bit higher pitched, but I still couldn't go, oh, that's 13.
Yeah. There was one year when I was working there a few years ago where we had some that were almost identical, and I could still tell them apart. When I heard them together, okay, yeah, they're a little different.
So, fun fact about the train whistles you may not know. The train whistles aren't owned by Silver Dollar City.
Just a couple of them.
Yeah, a couple of them when they have to have them. But for the most part, it's the engineers that own them.
Yeah, for the most part. Or a couple of them right now are being loaned from a friend of Dominic, who's an engineer there. So they've been using a few of them. A couple more on the engines last year.
I know Andrew told me at one point that there were actually a couple enthusiasts that were like, please put my whistle on the train!
It's really cool to be able to do that. And I have one myself, one that I got. It's a replica, so it wasn't used on a railroad, but it's based off of a real whistle from the Great Northern Railway. And so it was on engines for, a couple of weeks at a time. So it's always really neat to be able to hear your whistle and, be able to blow the whistle too and be like, wow, this is awesome. Even though you didn't make it, it's still this weird pride of ownership thing. You're like, man, I own this. Like, this is really cool.
So we got you recognizing whistles.
Yep.
And
around 2008 or 9, I really started kind of being able to go up and kind of see the engines. Of course, I didn't really, back then, they had I was also really shy. They also had the water tower right where the engines parked at the depot, so I couldn't really talk to the engineers much. And so didn't really have a chance to talk to them really until they moved that in, I think, 2011. And I was able to start talking to Dick Finn and Noah Bentley and kind of start talking to them when they were working there. And so then that kind of started a relationship between me learning about not only just trains, but this train specifically. And I became kind of dead set on, I'm going to do this when I get older. I'd like to be a conductor, but I also like to be an engineer. So, maybe take what I can get.
And one of the things I love with the engineers Silver Dollar City, it's not a job for them. Right. For pretty much every one of them, it's a passion. I love telling the story with Dick that when he was out in California, I got to ride behind one of his little steam engines.
Yep.
Had no clue It's just, hey, I'm out here. They got the little steamers going. Let's go ride, and had a ball. And then came out here and talking to him. Wait, you used to run them out in California?
Yeah.
And matching it up and realizing that I had actually ridden behind him. Because when he showed me the engine, I'm like, I remember that one. So, yeah. So
it's really cool
for all of you guys. The trains are not just the job; it's hobby and interest, and it shows up in the work and the attention to detail.
Oh yeah, definitely very detail oriented. Want them to look nice, want them to run well. Of course, we're always kind of the general mindset on a lot of things is if it ain't broke, don't fix it. For us, it's like, if it ain't broke, but it might break, we're going to upgrade it, repair it, Go ahead and get ahead of that so that it doesn't cause any problems. So that's, we're really proud of how things have been going with improving everything and making them to where there's less downtime and less things break, and we could keep moving forward with other projects.
Yeah, because in the past, there was a point in time when the people on the train were conductors, robbers, and engineers.
Yep.
And they did it all. And some of the stories that come out from that time. Duck. If you ever get a chance to hear about Duck, I can't do justice for his stories, but cranky old codger that you didn't get in his way.
Yeah, I've heard a few stories.
But they didn't have the attention to detail on the engines. It was, what do we have to do to make it run? And that was...
Pretty much, yeah. And a lot of, what a lot of the guests will see too nowadays is the appearance changing to kind of fit. Some of it's to kind of try something different or to see how we like something. But a lot of it's just to try to fit the theme better and make it look more authentic to either American steam engines. Even if it's something that kind of, 504, that's kind of more of a 1920s, 30s look. But it's still... kind of fits in with our theme some, even though it's a few years later. But 14 definitely has the most easily recognized 1880s appearance. Yep. You can look at it and go, oh, that's, kind of see what they're going.
Which is really kind of fun since they're 1940s German and Czechoslovakian engines.
Yeah.
But they look like classic American engines because of the way you guys have done the whistles, the lights, the cattle catchers, and all that. Yeah, I love how they look.
Oh yeah, me too. They're definitely really nice looking, and I think that's something that's really important for us too, especially because we, Silver Dollar Line is a passenger railroad, and for them to look nice and presentable as a guest railroad, I think was always really important, and I think it pays off.
You want to work at Silver Dollar City.
Yep.
So what happened?
When I got to where I was actually old enough, I think it was when I was 18 already, I was like, okay, I'm 18. I can work at Silver Dollar City besides just foods and merchandise. I was like, I want to try, going into attractions. And attractions division is where the conductors and robbers reside under. And so I applied for, I don't think they had a conductor position open at the time, but through people I knew, I was able to find out that I could work at Half Dollar Holler, which is the next the neighboring kids area, and so
share the same break room. You're basically
You'd be able to do off conductor for the train conductor breaks, and so you'd be working on that. So kind of get your foot in the door a little bit until we have a conductor position become available to where you can kind of move in that way. So May 2016 is when I hired on at Half Dollar Holler, and I did that all of 2016, and then summer of 2017 I was able to. It's like a temporary transfer, like job share on the train. So I was conductor.
They made you wait a year and a half.
Yeah, nobody left, and they always had positions filled, so I never had an opportunity to transfer. So they had the 45-day when you start in a division. You have to be there 45 days before you can transfer. So I think that's when they had one guy quit and another guy hired, and I couldn't switch at the time because I hadn't been there long enough. It was a long wait.
Okay, so you started off finally as a robber.
Yep.
And conductor, which I have to say, honestly, during that period, you and Chris put on the best robbery show I saw. I was so grateful to see you guys and film it, so I've got that one. It was really a period there for a while where the robberies, at least for me, were blah.
That's fair.
But you're robbing.
Oh,
You
yeah.
and Chris actually had some creativity. Oh, look, certain people aren't out here. We're going to roll.
That was fun because me and Chris both grew up wanting to do it. We both had a passion, both knew the script, both really wanted to do it. So I think it was just a golden opportunity for us. And he was my favorite to rob with whenever we were both working together. And so it was always fun. We'd always have fun with the show. And we had some interesting times. I could think of a couple stories that took place when the two of us were robbing. There was one where it was a hot summer day, and hear the train coming down Powder Keg Hill, hear the whistle. So we're standing out there ready to see the train go by the first time, and you can kind of hear the rumble of the fire as it gets closer. And then I hear a single whistle, which means that the engineer stopped. I'm like, okay, well, they don't do that at the fire's out, so we better go see.
Single whistle's not something you want to hear.
Yeah, so me and Chris, both with our hats on and our robber gear and our belts. I don't even know I think maybe threw the belts off, but we just took off sprinting down that rocky hill down to the train, and it wasn't too far away, but we sprinted down there, and we learned it was pull cord, false, everything was okay, and so they were able to get everything moving fairly quickly. And then train took off.
People always ask, does somebody pull the pull cord when they're not supposed to? Yes.
A lot. And so train took off, and me and Chris took off, got our belts back on, went down, and did the show still. And we were
you
hot.
Just saw us a few minutes ago.
Pretty much.
Oh.
We were hot and sweaty and out of breath. And we still did the show for him. And so that was the most exhausted I've ever been starting a show.
Yeah, I could imagine.
We also had one where we got Steve Welch really well. For some reason that day, the brakes, conductor brakes and stuff, they ended up, timing was weird or late or something, but Chris Ray went out to give the conductor brakes, and so I was doing one-man shows for a while. Then Chris comes in, he gets his break, so I did another one-man show. And
so basically what they do is, so the conductors can get their brakes, is they actually pull a robber off the show, send them up front to wave in trains, so the conductors can brake.
Yep.
And hated that.
So Steve, of course, knew that Chris was back out there. So he thought we were pulling a prank on him because Steve's looking around. Where's your brother? I'm like, oh, I'm trying to make up excuses. Oh, he's run off. He's chasing squirrels, or he's, whatever. Yeah. And so I try to distract him because we're trying to do a show. So we do the whole show. Steve eventually forgets about it before we even get halfway through. Train leaves. I tell Chris what happened. And so we both do the next show with the other conductor. Then Steve comes back out. And I'm like, on their way out, I was like, okay, Chris, here's what we're going to do.
Say hi to the dog.
Chris, here's what we're going to do. You start the show like a one-man. I will hide behind the fake shack. And at some point, I will go down and I will surprise Steve.
Hi. There's company over. She's got to say hi.
So Steve, same thing. I'm kind of peeking around just a little bit, but I didn't really want to be seen, so I was just listening. And I could hear Steve, same thing. Where's your brother? You're hiding around here somewhere. He eventually forgot about it. And so I took my opportunity. I ran down the hill to go and surprise him. And everybody in car 2 and 3 were like, behind you, behind you. And he turned around and looked and caught me. And yeah, but I was able to at least have an opportunity to try to get him. He was fun to mess with.
It was interesting because Steve, of course, transferred over, and he took over the PIC. That's the secondary in charge person when I was there. And Steve was an interesting transition. It took him a little while to get things, which we thought he'd pick it up real quick. But he turned out to be real good. Yeah,
when I was a conductor and Steve and Chris were robbing, I knew I was not going to get through that show with a straight face. Because they would always, just the way they played off each other was always really funny. And Steve would do these weird random things that I don't even think he was trying to be funny. Like the brim of his hat kind of naturally kind of hung down a little bit. So he'd sit there and just do this while he's looking at you. Just random different things, and I'd just be cracking up. They'd be talking about something. They'd kind of get off a little bit, and of course I'm just cracking up because it's easy to amuse me.
Yeah. Well, and of course, one of the unsaid rules of the job is the robber's job is to make the conductor crack.
Oh, yeah.
That's unsaid rule, but yeah, you're always trying to do that.
Oh, yeah. And I even got him, we were both robbing, and I got him to crack. I didn't even try to. We were doing the bit about, if I told you to jump head first off a cliff, would you do that? And he was Ralphie, and he goes, not again. I said, there you go. See? It's 3 years in the 3rd grade. It paid off. And he goes, yeah, I was the tallest kid in my class. And I went, well, good for you, buddy. Without missing a beat. And he lost it. Couldn't get him back the rest of the show.
Yeah. Well, it usually, if they're not cracking the conductor, it's the robbers cracking each other. And usually it's Ralphie getting Alfie because Alfie's got to be the straight guy.
Yeah.
But at least compared to Ralphie. Then the conductor's the straight man for both of them.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, it was always fun. Kevin. The two Kevins. Because you worked with Huff.
I did work with Huff. I robbed with Kevin Day one day
day.
because he was training with Steve. And that was hilarious. That was so much fun. But Huff was a lot of fun to work with.
Yep.
He was one of my favorites.
Huff has ADHD. And, I mean, he really... Squirrel!
Oh, yeah.
He's just all over the place. But,
oh, yeah.
But it's amazing how both of them have lines. You know you've hit a solid improv line when it gets used again and again.
Yeah.
And both of them have lines that are still in the show.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So anyways, you're robbing.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately you want to become an engineer.
Yep. That's still my goal there. And I didn't think that it would happen for a while. I thought, they got a group of guys who want to stay, stick around. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm okay because I'm happy where I'm at too. In the meantime, conducting and robbing trains. While I'm looking forward to it, I'm content with where I'm at. And then going into 2018, a couple of the engineers left right about the same time to pursue different railroad opportunities. Andrew talked to me. He's like, I'm glad that you applied for it. I went for a couple other guys for right now because they have mechanical experience. And so, but I really want you to come back and apply next time.
So basically, Andrew said, you've hung around us way too long. You're another redhead. No way.
In a way, yeah. He's like, be patient. Your time will come. And another engineer left that at the end of August. So I started as an engineer September of 2018. And so I finally got to do it. And I was kind of in shock when it actually happened because I'm like, well, here I am. I'm 20 years old and I'm already getting to do my dream job. And I expected to be in my 30s at least before I got to do it. And so I was still blown away, kind of pinch yourself. Like, wow, this is actually where I work. I get to come in and, be a part of this every day. I
get paid to do what I've wanted to do since I was a kid.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. And, the engines were a lot of fun to work on and work with. And it was fun to be able to be a part of different things to improve the railroad or just, kind of maybe do something that, hey, we like this and, we're going to implement this and we do it. And so I got to help with, we were overhauling engine 14 at the time to get it ready for 2019 for its debut on the railroad. And so I got to be a part of that some. And of course, I was fairly green when I started, didn't have much mechanical experience, but I kind of knew a lot about the railroad and the steam engine. So I think that kind of helped give me an edge. And so I was able to kind of work on some stuff with 14 and do a little bit of things here and there to kind of help, get it ready for opening. And so we got to be a part of getting it, starting running it, kind of on the railroad at the time. And that was an interesting off season too, because that was right after the beginning of construction for Mystic River. I don't know if many people know this, but the track right before that construction crossing that maybe not many people see, it's right by the roundhouse. There for several feet, probably almost to the Fireman's Landing crossing, actually had to be ripped out. And they actually, contractor came in and relayed it, but we spent much of the off season without the entire railroad laid, and they had to rip out part of the roundhouse rail yard because they had to run plumbing, and they had a lift house that was on the other side of the roundhouse, so they had to dig through there and run their stuff. When we finally did get ready, we're able to get going again. It was the week before opening, so we did all of our preseason laps on the engines and stuff. And of course, that's see what the engines are doing that maybe we've adjusted to, maybe we've fixed this, so we'll see how it runs. We'll kind of get the hang of it, different things, kind of refresh our minds on how we run each engine and stuff. Also get our legal laps on the engines and coaches. And so we did. That's actually something that's interesting. Because I had to laugh at this report. There are no standards for this. And I'm kind of going, there's a lot of standards they have to meet for running these engines. Off season, you're not just sitting there in the roundhouse picking your noses. Right. We're not just, reading books or,
there's a lot of work that goes on into them. You go over with a fine-tooth comb. You go over the track with a fine-tooth comb. You do a lot of track work.
Replace a lot of ties.
And then, you've got all these laps you have to do because For people who live near the park, they typically hear the engines going 3 weeks or so before the park opens.
Generally. So
Yeah.
sometimes, especially if we have to move things around, because we have to pull all the trucks from our underneath coaches, and so we need room in the yard, so we'd leave one set of coaches either at the depot or the show, so we'd run the engines out to get them, so you might hear them even in January or March. But we had to do our laps, and this was Saturday and Sunday. The park opened the following week, Wednesday, I think, and 504 had needed 10 laps because nothing really was changed to it majorly. 43 and 76 had just had the pony trucks removed, the front set of wheels, because they were just not necessary. So we were able to get them removed, and they needed 25 each. So 50 plus 10 is 60 laps total between the engines. 14, since it was an overhaul, needed 50 laps. So now we're at 110 laps in total between 4 engines, and we did it in 2 days. We were running 14 the first day on Saturday until quarter to midnight, just doing lap after lap after lap after lap.
Well, and see, I remember even as the conductors that week before, we were able to take advantage of you guys running laps. Okay, let's get in our practice laps so we can get used to doing what we do. And my goodness, that week before the park, you're just sitting on the train, spilling over and over as you just go around and around. That was actually one of the few times outside of Christmas when we would run 2 engines. Because you got to get all the laps on those engines. So we'd have 2 sets of conductors on the back of the different trains. And
so we did, on that first day, we only did 40 laps on 14, which we started later in the day, just because we were able to get going. And so we did 40 laps, and once everybody else left, we just had all the crossings closed. Even the flooded mine crossing, we were able to chain it closed and just go and go and go and go. We did marathon laps, so we'd go 3 to 5 laps around without stopping, just kind of managing our fuel and water. And then the next day we did 10 laps each on 504 and 14 simultaneously, and then switched them out seamlessly and got 76 and 43, did each of their 25 laps, and so they were good to go.
You mentioned something else too, that so you still hear people say they have to stop the engines to build up the steam before it goes up the hill. Nope. They used to. Absolutely. That's why the robberies stopped, especially with the old Davenport. And even the engines when they were still at the day of the, okay, we're going to make it go. But they've got those things so fine-tuned now that, you can just roll.
Yeah, you can keep steam. That's a part of it, too, is, keeping steam, but also keeping enough water in it, because the varying elevations, would change how much water you need in the boiler.
I hope you enjoyed this video. Please let me know your thoughts, your comments, your suggestions, your ideas. Be sure to share them in the comments below, or you can contact me. There's information in the description that has my email address, fan pages, information about merchandise, and so much more. So be sure to check that out. Don't forget to hit that like button, share the video, and if you haven't already, hit the button right up there to subscribe. And in fact, if you did enjoy this, I've even got another video for you right here. And also about these wonderful people here, those are my YouTube members and my patrons, the ones whose financial support makes this possible. I couldn't do it without them. If you want to know more about that and the perks that come with it, well, be sure to check the description. There's a link right down there. Thank you so incredibly much. God bless.